Imagine a river winding through an untouched valley, its waters flowing calmly, naturally, and ceaselessly. It doesn't question its course, resist the stones in its path, or try to flow backward. It simply moves forward. The river, in its simplicity, mirrors life itself. Yet unlike the river, we humans often spend our energy swimming against the current, fighting the inevitable flow that guides us. This constant struggle, this uninterrupted fight, only amplifies our suffering. Water, in contrast, offers a vital lesson. Strength lies in surrender. Throughout our lives, we are taught to control, plan, and strive. While these impulses serve us in many ways, they become our greatest adversaries when we resist the tides of life. Here lies the paradox. The more we try to control, the more out of control we feel. The more we chase, the further away we seem from what we truly desire. The river never fights gravity, so why are we so different? This leads us to the central idea we'll explore together. To achieve the life we dream of, we don't need to swim faster, fight harder, or build bigger dams. The secret is to let go of the rope. To abandon the urge to battle the current and learn to flow with it, embracing every curve, whirlpool, and stillness. This is not an easy lesson. After all, we've been taught that control is power, effort produces results, and happiness requires a fight for what we want. But is this really true? Is fulfillment found in dominance or in surrender? Like the river, life has its own course to follow. To interrupt or redirect it is to ignore its inherent wisdom. True transformation happens when we stop fighting the flow. Instead of resisting, we learn to dance with life's waters. Sometimes fast and turbulent, sometimes slow and serene. At the heart of every human being lies a pulsating desire, an insatiable flame that propels us forward. We long to achieve, to possess, to transcend. But not all desires are created equal. Some float on the surface, fleeting whims that evaporate as quickly as they arise. Others emerge from the depths, rooted in our essence, crying out for true fulfillment. In modern times, we are immersed in a culture of shallow desires. Social media bombards us with images of seemingly perfect lives, shaping our perception of what we should want. It's like walking on a hedonic treadmill, where each fleeting achievement leaves us thirsting for the next. We keep running but never move forward, perpetually dissatisfied. Think of the nights when we rest our heads on our pillows, our eyes tired from scrolling endlessly on our phones. How many desires have been planted in us without our consent? A new car, a bigger house, a slimmer body, more likes, more approval. These aspirations, externally imposed, are not our own. They mirror a society that teaches us to want without teaching us to understand what truly matters. Contrast this with the deeper desires that emerge from the soul. They don't ask for fame, wealth, or external validation. They long for genuine connection, a greater purpose, inner peace. These desires defy the linear logic of more is better. Instead, they often call us to let go, to simplify, to seek less. Why, then, is it so hard to discern between what we truly want and what society imposes on us? The answer lies in the nature of the human mind. Our attention is a finite resource, constantly captured by external stimuli. As long as our focus remains outward, we lose the opportunity to listen to the inner call, the one that guides us beneath the surface. And here lies the trap. The more we chase superficial desires, the more we amplify our dissatisfaction. It's like trying to quench thirst with salt water. The more we drink, the thirstier we become. The solution, then, is not to desire more but to desire better. Not to chase after everything but to stop and ask, what truly matters? When we become aware of the difference between surface desires and deep ones, we begin to see life with new eyes. It's not about renouncing everything but about learning to listen to our own souls. The question remains, what do you truly desire in the depths of your being when the world around you falls silent? Among the vast concepts of human thought, few are as intriguing as the paradox. It's the paradoxical nature of life that brings us to the next point. The law of reverse, a principle deeply explored by Alan Watts, a philosopher who saw existence as a game of constantly shifting mirrors. Watts described the law of reverse simply but profoundly. The more desperately we chase something, the further we push it away. Imagine a man trying to float on a lake. The moment he struggles to stay afloat, thrashing and churning the water, he sinks. But when he relaxes, allowing his body to align with the water's natural flow, he floats effortlessly. This is the power of paradox. The law of reverse challenges our fundamental assumptions about happiness and fulfillment. We want to be happy, so we chase pleasure. Yet the more we seek it, the more aware we become of its fleeting nature, and happiness slips through our fingers. We want peace, so we avoid conflict at all costs. Yet this aversion to discomfort creates anxiety, the very opposite of peace. The pursuit of positive experiences paradoxically becomes a negative experience, and accepting negative experiences in turn becomes profoundly positive. This is the essence of the law of reverse. To embrace pain, discomfort, and impermanence is not to resign to them but to transcend their power over us. Consider a common example: the fear of failure. When we run from this fear, we build barriers to protect ourselves from failing, but these same barriers also keep us from growing. When we accept the possibility of failure, we free ourselves from its chains. Suddenly, failure is no longer a sentence of defeat but a lesson, an inevitable step toward mastery. The law of reverse is not just an intellectual concept, it's an invitation to daily practice. Imagine embracing what you fear most, not as surrender but as a dance with life. Instead of fighting against the storms, we learn to sail through them. But why does this idea feel so counterintuitive? Perhaps because we've been conditioned to see life as a constant battle, where victory comes only through effort and resistance. Watts offers us an alternative vision. Life is not a war to be won but a melody to be danced to. And in the dance, fluid movement and acceptance are far more powerful than brute force. In the end, the law of reverse teaches us that transformation begins when we stop fighting against reality and start aligning with it. The question we must ask ourselves is this: what would happen if we stopped fighting against ourselves and embraced who we are, imperfections and all? Acceptance is a simple word, yet it carries profound transformative depth. It's easy to mistake it for resignation, but acceptance in its truest sense is not passive. It is a radical act of courage. It's opening our arms to life as it is, instead of insisting on how we think it should be. Imagine a traveler carrying a heavy backpack through the mountains. He grumbles about the weight, curses the stones in his path, and wishes the journey were different. But in doing so, he carries not only the physical burden of the backpack but also the emotional weight of resistance. Now imagine that, in a moment of clarity, he stops. He doesn't abandon the backpack but chooses to accept it as part of the journey. The path doesn't become easier, but his experience is transformed. This is exactly what Lao Tzu, the sage of Taoism, meant when he wrote, "He who flows as life flows knows he needs no force." Acceptance invites us to abandon the internal struggle, to stop demanding that reality bend to our desires, and instead to gently bend ourselves to reality. In practice, this means embracing the highs and lows of existence. When we face a loss, for example, our first reaction is to resist. We cling to the pain, replay what was taken from us, and fight against the truth that nothing is permanent. But what happens if, instead, we accept this impermanence? The pain doesn't disappear, but it loses its grip. We become capable of growing from it rather than being destroyed by it. Acceptance also demands that we let go of incessant judgment, of ourselves, of others, and of circumstances. We constantly categorize things as good or bad, desirable or undesirable. This judgment creates a barrier between us and reality, a barrier that only intensifies suffering. But by abandoning the need to label, we find surprising clarity. This does not mean we should become passive in the face of injustice or hardship. On the contrary, acceptance gives us the foundation to act wisely. When we accept reality as it is, rather than as we wish it to be, our actions become more aligned and effective. It's like swimming against a current. By resisting, we expend energy without moving forward. But by accepting the current's strength, we can swim smarter, leveraging its flow to our advantage. Acceptance, therefore, is a tool for spiritual transformation. It is a gateway to inner peace, not because it isolates us from life's difficulties but because it teaches us to coexist with them. Lao Tzu reminds us that he who accepts is at peace, and he who is at peace is with the Tao. If we accept the present moment as it is, with all its imperfections and challenges, what might we discover about ourselves and life itself? Happiness, with its fleeting and sparkling light, often seduces us as a goal to be achieved, a prize at the end of an endless race. Yet the more we run toward it, the further it moves away, like a horizon retreating as we advance. This is because happiness is, in its essence, fleeting, a momentary emotion, beautiful but transient. Contentment, on the other hand, is the solid ground where we can truly rest. Imagine a bird that, after a long flight, lands on a sturdy branch. It's no longer chasing the winds or worrying about the skies ahead. It has found a place to simply be. This is the difference between happiness and contentment. Happiness is the flight, exciting and unpredictable. Contentment is the landing, stable and peaceful. Our society, however, glorifies the flight. We are taught to constantly seek happiness, to fill ourselves with excitement, to chase extraordinary moments. But no one teaches us the art of landing, of finding satisfaction in the ordinary, of appreciating the silence between the notes in life's music. And yet, it is in this quiet space that true peace resides. Contentment is not resignation. It's not giving up on aspirations but shifting how we approach them. It's not about denying the desire to grow or experience but about pursuing them with an acceptance of impermanence. For everything, no matter how beautiful or painful, is transient. Consider happiness as a wave rising and breaking on the shore. If you try to grasp it, it slips through your fingers. But if you simply watch without attachment, you'll see that there is beauty both in its rise and its dissolution. Accepting this impermanence is the first step to finding contentment, a peace that doesn't rely on external circumstances but flourishes internally. Spirituality plays a crucial role here. Great spiritual traditions remind us that true satisfaction isn't found in seeking something outside ourselves but in returning to our center. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering, while accepting impermanence brings liberation. Similarly, Christian teachings speak of a peace that surpasses all understanding, a peace unshaken by the world's storms. But how can we cultivate this peace in a world that constantly urges us to seek, compare, and want more? The answer lies in simple yet profound practices. Moments of silence, daily reflections, gratitude for the present. When we stop gazing incessantly at the horizon, chasing the next wave of happiness, we discover the vast ocean within us. Contentment is knowing that, regardless of where we are or what we possess, we are already whole. In this state of completeness, happiness, when it arrives, becomes a welcome visitor, not a desperate need. If we learn to land in the present moment, what might we discover about the true nature of peace? If there is one thing life teaches us, it's that the deepest ideas become valuable only when we embody them in our daily lives. The law of reverse, with all its paradox, is one of these ideas. It is not enough to understand it intellectually, we must live it. But how can we transform this philosophical principle into tangible practice? Let's begin with a simple visualization exercise, a metaphor we can carry with us. Imagine you are holding a tightly stretched rope with all your strength. At the other end is the source of your resistance, a situation, an emotion, or a desire you've been struggling to control. Your muscles are tense, your mind fixated on the struggle. Now visualize yourself letting go of the rope. Feel the immediate relief, the release of futile effort. Notice that in letting go you lose nothing, instead you gain peace. This symbolic act of letting go of the rope can be translated into daily practices. Gratitude is one of them. When we cultivate gratitude, we shift our focus from what is missing to what is already present. It is a powerful reminder that wholeness is not found in endless seeking but in recognizing what we already have. Another essential practice is presence. Life happens in the present moment, yet we are often pulled by the past or consumed by the future. Being present is an act of acceptance, embracing the now without judgment or expectation. Something as simple as conscious breathing for a few minutes each day can anchor us in the present. We can also reflect on our desires. Not all need to be repressed, but it is vital to discern those that guide us toward wholeness from those that lead us astray. Ask yourself, is this desire truly mine? Or was it implanted by external expectations? By identifying superficial desires, we can release them with ease, like leaves carried away by the wind. A transformative practice is learning to embrace difficult emotions instead of resisting them. When sadness or anger arises, our first reaction is to avoid or suppress them. But what if, instead, we sat with them, treating them as visitors in our home? Acknowledge them, listen to what they have to say, and then let them naturally move on. Finally, remember that applying the law of reverse is not about perfection. It is a process, a continuous learning experience. Each small practice, each moment of acceptance, is a step forward on this journey. By integrating these teachings, we begin to realize that life doesn't have to be a constant struggle. When we stop resisting, we discover that the flow of existence takes us exactly where we need to be. If we begin letting go of the rope, what else might we release? and ultimately embrace. At the end of this reflective journey, we are brought back to the river, to that initial image that pulses as a metaphor for life. Now, perhaps we see it differently. No longer as a force demanding resistance, but as a serene guide that knows the way. The river doesn't rush, nor does it hesitate. It simply flows, accepting the bends, the obstacles, the stillness of the banks, and the ferocity of the falls. And what about us? What would happen if we allowed ourselves to be like the river? If we learned to let go of the reins of control, to trust the flow of life, to embrace both the calm and the storms? There is an inexplicable power in ceasing to fight. When we release the need to control everything, we discover that the world doesn't fall apart. It simply finds a new balance. True transformation doesn't occur when we change the world around us, but when we change the way we relate to it. When we let go of the rope, we create space for life to surprise us, for new paths to reveal themselves, for growth in ways we never imagined. And so, the dance of life becomes lighter. We can move with the melody instead of trying to rewrite the score. We accept what is without abandoning what could be. The paradox is that, in giving up the need to control the uncontrollable, we gain a freedom that once seemed impossible. Now the invitation is before you. Let these ideas flow through your mind like a river moving toward infinity. Reflect on them, absorb them, and see where they lead you. Ask yourself, what am I holding on to that I could let go? What part of me is ready to trust the flow? As you arrive at these answers, share your journey. The power of ideas grows when they are exchanged, discussed, and lived in community. For those of you who have joined us on this journey, we thank you for this exchange of reflections. If these ideas have touched your mind or heart, we invite you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this content with others who might benefit from these messages. Together, may we learn to flow with life.